Dr. Samuels was CC'd on it, and it was sent to Dr. Birdie. We never received it.
And we were CC'd.
Where was the letter coming from?
The Department of Education. And it was directed, it was
directed to her, but you also need to ask yourself, why didn't the department, any other time we get something from the Department of Education that the board is CC'd on, a letter is sent to us. This time it did not happen. And now you have information.
That is not true. We have not been getting correspondence. We have been CC'd from the Department of Education.
Then you need to ask the Department of Education why that was not
No,
sent.
I need to ask my superintendent why she is not making sure that we're not getting copies of these letters. Because we are addressed on it. They're going directly to her, and you as the board president and our superintendent are not making sure that the board is getting the correspondence.
That is actually addressed to Dr. Knight Birdie.
You're board president.
And I did not receive this from PDE.
So then that's a question for Dr. Knight, why she did not receive
That
it.
is a question for PDE to answer.
Well,
Right now we're going over circles. There is a motion. Right now there is a motion. There is a motion on the floor. Right now there's a motion on the floor, and the motion was Mr. Carter wanted to suspend the superintendent and business manager without pay. The motion was seconded.
If I may, just a point of clarification. I thought Mr. Carter's motion was to add that item to the agenda.
Yes, it was.
Not to make the decision on the item itself.
Okay.
So the motion that's really before the board is to add that item to the agenda. If the board approves it and adds it to the agenda, then there, I think, has to be a reconsideration of that. Then there has to be a consideration of that motion as to whether or not the board will approve that motion. And then I think you can get into a discussion of the motion. Right now, it's just to add it as an item to the existing agenda. Vote it up or down.
And since there is no more discussion, please call the vote, Ms. Anderson.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Fowler.
yes.
Mr. Gonzalez.
He said yes. He said yes. He said yes. That's right. Keep it moving. Keep it moving.
Mr. Pittman.
Yes.
Ms. Lawson. Mr. Roy. Ms. Whitehead Myers. Mr. Brown. Ms. Robinson. 5 no, 3 yes, 1 abstain. The vote does not carry.
Now, is there a motion on the floor to amend the agenda to remove 10.21 personnel?
I'd also like to make a motion to amend the agenda and add something to the item for this evening too.
They can't count. 4 yes. 4 no.
Doesn't die.
Recount.
5 no's, 3 yes, and 1 abstain.
It wasn't 5-4.
Not true. 1 abstain.
Yeah, Gonzalez said
4
yes.
yeses. It was 4 and 4. 4, 1 abstain.
If I may,
It was 4-4.
the vote was 5, 3, and 1, if I recall.
5-4.
It was 4.
Carter is 4. Gonzalez, that's 4.
Ms. Anderson has recorded the votes. We will not have shouting out from the gallery, please. Mr. Cooper, you were going to say something.
Yes, I was going to say, just as a point of order for everyone, please, I know that you're passionate about the things that we're talking about, but we also have to have an orderly meeting. When the board is discussing matters, we ask you to refrain from making comment, and loudly making comment, because that's not in the order of things. The members of the public, yourselves, will certainly have the opportunity to comment on agenda items and non-agenda items. We have to have a order to these meetings, and we have to ask that you not disrupt that order. And we thank you for complying with that.
The motion on the floor is to amend the agenda to remove 10.2.
And I'd also like to make a motion to add to the agenda as well for tonight. Add an item.
What would you like to add, Ms. Fowler?
I would like to add to the agenda tonight a vote on removing Danny Robinson as board president.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's no second. I'll second it. Is there any discussion?
Sure, would you like me to go over the reasons? Let's talk about the lack of accountability, the lack of transparency, what we just discussed with this letter. You should have been on top of it. It's your job as the board president to make sure things like this are being handled. The lack of professionalism. You have appointed board members to committees that none of them are showing up for to chair, in your own words and your emails, that you're doing the job of all the committees. That's lack of leadership because you're not putting the right people in charge of these committees so that we can be informed what's going on within our district, and those people can get those committee reports out to the public and to the board members so that we can make informed decisions when we come prepared for these meetings. You overrode our board solicitor in our executive session. Our board solicitor gave you instructions that you were to disperse a letter to the board. He told you to do that, and when you were questioned about it in executive session upstairs why you didn't, you said, because I don't want to. I don't understand why we are paying our solicitor. You did
Right
say
now, Ms. Fowler, you're disclosing things that were discussed in executive session, and two were not true.
You refused to release a letter that our board solicitor, and I did not say what the letter was about, but you said upstairs, I said you were instructed by our solicitor to disperse that letter to the boards, and you said, and I don't want to. Is exactly what you said, because I asked you, why haven't we gotten it? And you said, because I'm not giving it to you. And I said, why are we paying our solicitor?
What I said changed twice.
Last but not least, one of the main reasons that I feel that you should be removed is your lack of professionalism. The display that you put on last month with our crow was abhorrent. We made national news. That video was viewed over 10,000 times, the way that you spoke to our crow. That is unprofessional, lack of leadership. As a board president, you should be able to control your emotions and not attack people that have been appointed by our state to come in and help us.
Take over,
So the motion on the floor is to amend the agenda to add the removal of Danny Robinson as president of the board. And was there a second?
Yeah, I second.
Okay, and since there's no more discussion, please call the vote.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
No, and I'd like to add up quickly. I'm very proud that Daniel Robinson is our president. No felony, nothing illegal, driving drunk, and things like this. And I'd say, no.
Ms. Lawson, Ms. Lawson,
Ms. Lawson? Did you say? The motion was to amend the agenda to add, the motion to remove me as board president. And that's the motion to amend the agenda to add that item to remove me as president? And within your vote?
Mr. Pittman,
Yes.
Mr. Roy, Ms. Wayne Myers, Mr. Brown, Ms. Robinson. 5, 1, and 3. Motion doesn't carry.
Now, we can, is there a motion on the floor to amend the agenda to remove under personnel
Madam President.
10.2, I am, you're not recognized to speak right now, I'm in the process of a motion right now, to remove 10.21 under personnel. Is there a motion on the floor to approve?
So moved. Second. I second.
Is there any discussion? If not, please call the vote.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Ms. Lawson, Mr. Pittman,
Yes.
Mr. Roy, Ms. Wayne Myers, Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
9-1, motion carries.
Is there a motion on the floor to approve April 15th?